And one of the people in that room happened to have it and goes boom, boom. You know what? That would have been a beautiful, beautiful sight, folks. That would have been a beautiful, beautiful sight.
Well, Donald Trump has had quite a weekend. First of all, he has fired his campaign manager, and now looking toward the general election, felt that a change needed to be made. We're keeping an eye on that. He also was able to get on the south side of the NRA, which is not easy to do. Now, since Donald Trump has tweeted out now, of course, I was talking about it would have been, employees at Club Pulse, or it would have been some additional armed guards. But boy, that's not how the NRA interpreted it and came out and said, no, this is not a good idea to have people that are in a bar and they are there to have a good time and drink. It is not a good idea to have them armed. And so, getting on the south side of the NRA on a gun issue is a real trick. So there's some splaining going on right now. And also over the weekend, and it happened down in beautiful Las Vegas, we had the head of the GOP here in the state of Utah who had the opportunity to meet with Donald Trump. James Evans is on the line with us. James, welcome. Good to have you here on the program.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
I got to tell you, I was talking with Enid Mickelson just a few moments ago, and boy, does she have an interesting challenge being the head of the Rules Committee now. And, you look at some of the major players in the state of Utah that are participating not only in the United States Congress in very powerful positions, but within the party right now. And then I see a picture of you meeting with the presumptive nominee of the party, Donald Trump. How did that come about?
Well, Donald Trump Jr. Recognizes the importance of Utah, and they reached out to Don Pay and set the meeting up. So I went down there and met with Mr. Trump.
How was that? What does he like to meet one-on-one? I've never met him, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, he really is a charming person. You wonder how do people become billionaires, and when you meet him, you say, "Oh, I get it. Okay, I see how he's a billionaire." And so him in person versus what you see on stage, you just have to figure out that a lot of that has to be a show that he does on stage. And the thing that I think that of note is he doesn't have a large entourage. I think it was like 4 or 5 of them that were with him, and that's it. But when we met, we just sat down one-on-one and talked. There was no one else around. But I'm just talking about, normally when these presidential candidates come in, it's just a sea of people that come with them. You only had, I think 4 or 5 people, and that's it.
It is interesting. You said something really interesting, James, that I've wondered about. Where does the show kind of end and the candidate really begin? And, what kind of like that show I used to watch when I was just a little kid, will the real Donald Trump stand up? I'm still waiting for that.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that when you look at those the people, like the lines was just unbelievable, but just the intensity of those who wanted to be at the rally. And oftentimes you can measure the success of a candidate by the intensity of the supporters. Well, these are some intense supporters.
Yeah.
I mean, just from across the spectrum. And so there's something going on there. And so I'm starting to ask myself that, we have those in politics that say, well, how did we end up with a Donald Trump? And so I think I'm starting to ask myself, well, what is it that 14 million Americans, or what message are they trying to send to the political establishment? There's something that they're unhappy about. So maybe we need to start evaluating what is going on here.
Yeah, even Jeb Bush mentioned that to me very, very early on in the process when he was in Salt Lake. He said, I've really started to try to really kind of figure out the Trump phenomenon, very similar to what you just said. What did Trump say to you about Utah? Because he does have Utah troubles. It was told to me several months ago, actually 3-4 months ago, that number one for Donald Trump in the entire country is West Virginia. Lowest in the country for Donald Trump by some measures was Utah. What is he going to do about his Trump troubles?
Well, basically recognizes that he's going to come to Utah. He recognizes what he needs to do. He understands his campaign approach is somewhat off-putting, especially for people in Utah. But he wants to, I think, get down to the business at hand, which is that Utah has the number one economy. Utah certainly is an example to the nation. He wants to tap into that. and get Utahns to understand that that Trump as president is going to certainly factor in with what Utah has done. So he wants to look at the successes of Utah and say, look, you guys are doing it right. You need to be on the team. We need to make America great again. All of that kind of, just the points that he's been making is that Utah is a key part of the success of any Republican presidential candidate. So he has work to do in Utah, that's for sure, but that's his work to do. I saw firsthand that he recognizes that, and he's going to make it happen here in Utah.
James, I got to hit our news here at the top of the hour, but when is he coming? Did he give any time frame?
He just basically said, look, after the convention, I'm coming out to Utah. So I don't know if that's the week after, a month after, but he's certainly committed to coming out here.
James, I appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks.
James Evans, the head of the GOP here in the state of Utah, who met with Donald Trump in Las Vegas over the weekend.